to what we've been doing lately, which is looking at what's happening in the world of politics and relating that to the world of business and organization and leadership. And we had a pretty big political event this week in which the United States sitting Vice President Joe Biden decided to stand down from the election and support his vice president. And there's an interesting question that comes out of that, which is, when is it time to stand down? I think this is a really interesting question because it's one of the worst answered questions, in my humble opinion, in business in the world today, because senior leaders don't often step down. First of all, we create a scenario for them where it's too lucrative and it's too high status and too rewarding for people to ever want to step aside, which I think is actually a huge mistake. It's fascinating. I've done talent development programs for companies, ranging from 30 or 40 employees to hundreds of thousands of employees. And we're always talking about movement and growth until you get to the top job. And then nobody talks about movement and growth there. Those people seem to be there as long as they want, or in many cases, as long as they can hold on. It's very, very rare that a senior leader or a CEO decides to step aside of their own accord, especially if they still think they could or should be leading. I don't think Joe Biden thinks that he shouldn't be able to do this, and he's not able to do this. I think what he's come up with is the fact that the world is saying, we have enough concerns about age that are legitimate. I don't want to be ageist here, but we have enough concerns about, are you still kind of in the prime of being able to do this? Once you were, absolutely. Are you still the best candidate anymore? And he's decided, I think, that he can't completely answer that question in the affirmative. And so he has had the self-awareness and he has had the humility to step aside. And I sincerely doubt that was an easy choice for him. I'm sure it was incredibly difficult. He's worked his political career to get to that place. This is like most CEOs. They work their entire career to get to that place, but they have to realize when they become less electable. So what does less electable mean if you're a CEO not getting elected, in a sense, and not a political candidate? What it means is, are the ideas you're bringing, are the approach you're bringing, and is your ability to influence still as fresh and powerful as it once was? Or is it really settled into a way of being and doing that people have their expectations about you that are not going to change? Here's what I think is most interesting about what's going to happen in this election and what can happen in organizations. Once we, the general population people or people in your organization, think you're not going to change anymore, we don't allow for the possibility for you to change. In fact, we ignore the things you do that might seem like change because we have a bucket we've placed you in. Here's the interesting thing about Kamala Harris in this election, is her bucket is really relatively unknown. Yeah, she's been the vice president, but she has supported the president's policies and approaches and been a real strong second to him. She hasn't had to come out and say, this is who I am, how I'm different, what I stand for, what I believe in, what I'm going to prioritize, and what I'm going to achieve. And so there's a moment for surprise. There's a moment for enthusiasm. There's a moment for re-engagement. There's a moment for people to say, let's look at her with some fresh eyes. It's really hard to look at Joe Biden with those fresh eyes, just like it's really hard to look at Donald Trump with fresh eyes. But being subject to those fresh eyes may be an advantage that the Democrats need politically, and it may be something that really helps her gain the presidency, just like it would be if someone was stepping up into a new role because the CEO did step aside. I think that as we look back over time, and I would love to have this conversation with a lot of ex-CEOs to say, are you glad you stayed in as long as you did? Or did maybe you leave a little too late? Because I've had some say to me, I could have left sooner and it would have had a better impact on the organization, but I didn't know how to do it. We don't make it easy for those people to leave. It's one of the things I think we need to think about systemically in organizations. But all that to say, really interesting time in U.S. politics as the president steps aside and makes that bold and humble choice to do that. Something that if you're a leader listening to this podcast or this video, I would think about that and say, when might my time be? and what might be next for me that's not this role, but could even be more rewarding and more fulfilling if, unfortunately, maybe not quite as lucrative as oftentimes the top job is, but still in a really good place for you. I'm Michael Leckie. This is our Career Ask Me Anything. Normally we'd have Mark Bowden with us. He's traveling today, but thank you for joining. If you want to do a Career Ask Me Anything, it doesn't have to be politically related, obviously. We usually don't do those. Just go ahead and whatever medium you're watching this video on, you can make a comment right down below, or you can go to my website, which is michaelleckie.com/ask, and you can fill in the form there. We'd love to hear your Career Ask Me Anything questions. So, hey, about your career, ask us anything. Take care. Bye-bye.